Hi class, in this video I'm going to show you how to do some ad hoc commands. This is going to be the last video for lab 1. So I just booted up all my machines. The time is synchronized 2:05, 2:05, 2:05, and 2:05. So I'm going to sign into S1, capital PA11WRD. Okay, so the first command that I'm going to run, and these are all on D2L, is a command called date. And I'm going to run this against S2. Now there's several things I want to point out about this command. First is I'm not supplying a module. So this is essentially doing the same thing as this command. So if you don't specify a module, the default module is command, which means you're just going to run a command on the remote machine. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm overriding the default stuff in my Ansible config file, which says the remote user is DevOps. So I'm actually using root now. So I'm overriding this variable. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm forcing it to prompt me for a password. So if I ran this command without specifying a user account or supplying forcing it to ask for a password, it'll actually run that command as DevOps. So this is my Ansible config file, and the remote user normally that I connect with is DevOps. I overrode that and I forced it to prompt me for a password. Also, if you don't supply a module name, it uses the default command module. The next command that I'm going to run is, now we're just running ad hoc commands. We're just using Ansible to remotely control a machine. Normally, we would do playbooks and you can design elaborate tasks with Ansible. Right now, I'm just doing simple tasks, connecting to the remote machine and doing these tasks. The first few commands that I'm going to do are all going to be Linux ad hoc commands, and then I'm going to go through and do some Windows ad hoc commands. So the next one I'm going to do again against RHS2, contoso.com, but this time I'm going to use the shell module. And I'm just going to, this -A stands for attributes. So this is, or arguments that you want to add to that module. So these are the actual commands that I want to do on the remote machine. In this case, I want to cat var log messages. It's our log file. I want to pipe that into word count and it'll tell me how many lines I'm going to run. So in this particular, how many lines are in that file? In this particular instance, yours might be different, but mine has 2,116 lines in that file. Word count will count how many characters are in a file, or how many words are in a file, or how many lines are in a file. If I just did with no dash L for lines, it will show me lines words, and characters. The reason I'm pointing this out is if I run the shell command, the shell module, and I run the set command, it'll show me all my environmental variables. But if I try to do that with the command module, it won't work. So some commands you can't use command to do. You have to use the shell. So you have both modules available to you. It's just going to take some experience to know which one is which. So I'm going to run another command using the command module. The command I'm going to run is hostname, and then I'm going to print out the output. Sorry, I forgot something. I forgot the double quote. So it basically just gives me the output. Now I'm going to do the same command with who am I? And it's relatively simple output. But let's use the module. I'll do this in a little bit. But I'm going to use a different module to show you sometimes this O might not be beneficial. And all this is going to do is just give you the output from the remote machine. The next module I want to go over is the raw module. You're not really going to see a major difference in this command than when I use the shell command, but you might come across a scenario where the device has some weird interface that Ansible isn't familiar with, like a router or some strange little embedded device. In a case like that, you might want to use the raw module to send these commands without really knowing what's at the other end. It's going to give me the same output in this particular case. If I put the proper switches here, and I put the proper host name, and I put the proper file name. So basically, this allows you to connect to devices that may not support SSH or support some other normal bash shell that you're not used to. So that's available to you. The next module I'm going to do is the user module. We're going to create a user account. Now, I have nested quotations. So if you have nested quotations, you can't use all the same type of quotation. There's a difference between a single quote and a double quote. A double quote in a Linux environment allows you to resolve names, variables to values before you execute the command. Single quote is absolute. I'll show you an example. So this right here is going to create a user account on RHS2. So I created that user account. Now, I didn't supply this, but I could say state equals present, meaning that that user account has to be there. Again, it did the command successful, but it didn't make a change because the user account was already there. So if I change the state to absent, it will remove that user account. So if I try to run it again, it was successful in connecting and running the command, but it didn't need to do anything because the user account was already removed. I could use, when I'm doing the absent state, I don't really need this field. The comment field is for user accounts that shows you the friendly name. So if my user account was B Ferris, my comment field will be Brian Ferris. So when I remove an account, I don't care what the real name of the individual is. It's not really necessary. So the next command I'm going to do is use the yum module, which will install software on a Linux box. So the name equals nmap. It's a piece of software that allows you to capture packets off your network card. So in this module, sorry, I just hit the state has three possible values: present, absent, or latest. The major difference is if I say present and it's already installed, it won't do any action. But if I say the latest and it's installed, but it's not the latest version, it'll upgrade it for me. So there's a difference. So we have this Ansible docs, and I can do a list. And it's going to take me into a VI interface. So here at the bottom, I can hit backslash. That means search for yum. And there's the two modules that have yum in it, yum and yum repository. This allows you to maintain your repositories. This actually does installations. Now to get out of this, I can do quit. If I wanted to see more details on that command, I could use Ansible docs, and then I could just type the module name, and it will pull up information about that module, of what I can do with that module. And I can see for the switch called state, I have present, installed, latest, remove, removed, or absent. So there's a lot of documentation there. The other thing I can do is I can go to docs.ansible.com and I have the documentation there as well. So right here, I can go to Ansible documentation and I can search for yum. There's a package there's a module with that name, and it shows me all that information here. And it's a lot, I think, easier to read than using Ansible Doc. But if you're doing the Red Hat exam, you don't have access to this. So it's important that you know how to use Ansible Doc. List will show you all the modules. And then you hit, just like in VI, to search for something, you can hit WIN to see all the modules that start with Win for Windows. I'm just going to hit N for next, N for next, N for next, N for next. And here's all my modules that start with Win. N for next. You can do, there's a module to configure your Windows firewall. There's all kind of Windows modules. One to create domain users, one to create groups. There's a copy command, so you can copy a file from one to another. Hit Q to quit. So I'm going to go back up here and remove. Actually, let's connect to that box to verify that it got installed. There's Nmap. I'm just going to do -- help because I don't want to actually run it. So it's installed. I'm going to exit out of RHS2, and I could change this to absent to remove that piece of software. Okay, I'm going to do another command just to show you how to mess around with your config file and the results you get when you do it. So I'm going to run the ID command. So right now I'm signed in as root. So I'm going to type code, Ansible Config to open up code. So right here is Ansible Config. So when I connect remotely, it's going to sign me in as DevOps. And then as soon as it signs me in, it's going to elevate me to root using sudo, then run the command. So if I change this become to equal false and save this file, Control S, then run the command again, it shows me signed in as DevOps. Before it showed me signed in as root. So basically it connected as DevOps, elevated me to root, and then ran the ID command as root. When I changed become to false, it connected as DevOps and ran the command as DevOps. So I'm going to change that back to true. And again, it was able to elevate my permissions because I'm hitting Control S to save, because I have the wheel group configured to automatically allow you to escalate your privileges without requiring a password. I'm going to do another command. Guys, I did that against my local host. I could have done that to RHS2 or RHS1. This is that host account that's always exists. You don't have to manually add that to your inventory file. It's always there. Now in this command, I'm going to show you how to copy a file using the copy module. I'm going to copy etc host. It's a file on RHS2. It's in the etc directory. It's a host file. We use it for local name resolution, and I'm going to copy it to, guys, I already ran this once, so it's not going to make an actual change for me, but for you it will. Oh, maybe I didn't run it. So it copied this file to this location. If I run it again, it didn't really do a change. I'm going to SSH to rhs2.contoso.com. I'm in my home directory. I'm going to list the temp directory because that's where I copied it to. And I have the host file right there. If I cat temp host and etc host, they will be identical. With the cat command, I can provide multiple targets. So this is temp host and this is etc host. They're both identical. I'm going to exit out of here, so I disconnect from RHS2 and it will connect me back to RHS1. So now I'm going to use the copy module to modify a file. Now look, when I connected, this is the first line that I received. So I'm going to do Ansible rhs2.contoso.com. I'm going to use the copy module. Then again, I'm going to be dealing with nested quotes, but I'm going to reverse them this time. I'm going to do content, because if I go over here and look for the copy module, I have a content argument that I can use. And basically, it's going to take a string and allow me to put a string in a file. So I'm going to actually edit a file using the copy module. So my content is going to be, there's my double quote, nested in a single quote. If I don't nest quotes properly, and I put a single quote here and a single quote here, the command would think that this wasn't part of the quote. So you need to be very careful when nesting quotes. And then the destination file I want to put it in is etcmotd, then end my single quote. Okay, sorry, I needed to update D2L because I saw I had a typo in there. I don't want you to have to deal with that typo. Okay, so now we're going to run some Windows ad hoc commands. So Ansible, and this time I'm going to do this against ms.contoso.com. When reboot. And so that's going to connect to my MS server and reboot it. So I just connected to it. And there it's rebooting. I'm going to wait till that's finished so I can run my next command. Okay, and so there it rebooted and it told you how many seconds it took to do the reboot. I could have done something like this where I supplied a user account name. But I didn't need to do that because my config, my var file for all my Windows servers already includes that user account name. But I just want to show you that I do have the ability to supply a user account name as well to a Windows box. So if I wanted to do something as a different user, okay. Now I'm going to against my DC, I'm going to create a user account in Active Directory, contoso.com. I'm going to sign into my DC first. Okay, I paused the video until the screen came up. So I'm going to go to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers, expand your domain, expand users, and you can see I don't have a user account called U1. So I'm going to go back to RHS1. And so on my DC, guys, if you can't get your mouse to respond or your cursor to respond, click over on the black bar and then it should respond at that point. If it doesn't at that point, jump to another machine, then jump back. So I'm going to do the win domain user module. The attributes will be the name equals U1, the first name equals user, the surname equal 1, the password equals our standard password, and the state equals present. And it's automatically going to sign me in as the administrator account. It's going to use WinRM to connect to that Windows box, and it's going to create this user account. Again, if you want to know what else you can set, go to Ansible Docs, type win domain user, and here's all the things that you could do. I could make sure that the user account will be unlocked. I could disable the account. I could create a new account but have it disabled. I could add them into certain groups. I can define when their password expires, put in their state, their street, force the user account to um, update the password. So there, I created the user account. I'm going to go back to my DC. I'm going to highlight users and hit refresh. And there's my U1 account. So I forgot to put an uppercase O there, but no big deal. So I'm going to go back to this and look at my state. I can say absent, present, or query. This just retrieves information about the account without making any changes. So I'm going to do absent to remove it. Okay, so in that case, it should have removed the account. So I'm going to go back to my DC, highlight users, hit refresh, and I can see U1 account has been removed. The next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to ping a Windows box. I see another typo, 1D2L I have to fix. This will ping all the machines in my Windows group. DC and MS. So I can see that they're both open. Now, on the Linux box, we had a module called command. We don't have that in um, the Linux box. So what we can do is we have a different module we can use. So if I just wanted to run a command, I could do, sorry, I'm going to do this to the MS server, contoso.com. The module I'm going to use is win shell. So I'm going to run the command hostname. And then I'm going to put the -o after to format the output. Now, this Windows box, this Linux box is interpreting the host name, and it is interpreting an escape R, which is a line feed, then an escape N, which is a new line. So basically, R will bring your cursor all the way back to the left, just like an old typewriter, and N will bring in a new line. So sometimes Windows file, a Linux box will interpret these two characters as the end of line characters. I'm trying to think of a command. Hold on 1 second. Now I'm going to do that same command without the -o. You see, it just gives me this, and it doesn't put this end of line character here. I'm going to make it more evident. I'm going to do this. I'm going to run the command called ipconfig/all with the -o. So it's giving me the raw output. It doesn't really look right. If I do it without the -o, so when you use that -o, it doesn't really interpret the end of line character properly. Where if you use the -o, if you don't use the -o, it seems to be interpreting the output a lot better on Windows boxes. So be careful with that -o. If something doesn't look right, try to you don't use the -o. So now another module we can do is install software on a Windows box. So I'm going to install the DHCP service. I'm going to include the management tools with the installation. And I want to make sure it is present. If it's not installed, install it. If it's already installed, don't do anything. So I'm going to go over to my MS server and sign in. Okay, it's already installed for me because I practiced this command once already. So I'm just going to go through the motions. If you do this command, it will actually install it for you. So it's already done for me. But I'm going to do absent and include management tools to be no, and it will remove it. So you can uninstall software with this tool as well, with this module. Sometimes when you remove a piece of software, you might have to do a reboot afterwards. And if you want, while we're waiting, we're going to look up that module. I have two choices, absent or present. So it removed it. But it still seems to be there. So I'm just going to do this. Does this require a reboot? Yes. So I'm going to do Ansible and use the Win Reboot module. When I did the installation, it also required a reboot. So kind of read your output and you'll know whether it needs a reboot or not. Reboot required? Yes. So what you can do is if you're doing this in a playbook, you can have multiple tasks in one play where you do the removal and then automatically do the reboot. Or you do an installation and it automatically does the reboot. So I'm going to go to the MS server, sign back in because it's already rebooted. It removed the service, but it didn't remove the management tool. I played around with this before and I actually got it to remove the management tool. So let me go back to this. And change this to yes. Then do another reboot. Guys, when I opened up that tool, I noticed that my server wasn't automatically populated, so I knew at that point the service was removed. I can have the management tools installed for a service without actually having the service installed. So if I had the DHCP utility here, I could use that to connect to other DHCP servers without having DHCP installed on this box. So it removed it for me. So I'm going to update the D2L so that that's listed properly. So it should be include management tools, yes, and state should be absent. So it'll remove the management tool. Okay, guys, this is a good uh, series of commands that I showed you just to kind of get you started with what you can do with these ad hoc commands. It's probably the not the most efficient way to use Ansible, but it's a good introduction to some modules and how to look up the arguments that each module has using the Windows Dock feature. So this is the last video for this lab. I will see you tonight, Monday at 7 o'clock to do the live session and get everyone get the textbook and get you going with ACE IT Labs. Okay, thank you very much.